Hello, and welcome to Cutting Through. I'm Mitchell Plitnick, the president of Rethinking Foreign Policy and the author of the Cutting Through newsletter on Substack. So today, I had not planned initially on recording a video, but um, things that I have seen in response to Donald Trump's horrifying announcement about a plan for ethnic cleansing in Gaza um, just forced me to do something, to say something, and to speak out. And it's not from the usual sources. It's not from the pro-Israel right. It's not from Republicans. It's not from people supporting Trump's plan. As a matter of fact, um, the responses have come from Democratic mouthpieces, basically, and it's horrifying, and it reflects something really terrible. Uh, just one example, Brian Krasenstein, who has a pretty significant social media following, tech bro, uh, but absolutely someone who is aligned strongly with the Democratic Party. He wrote this to Muslims, specifically Muslims, who sat out the election because Kamala Harris was too, quote, pro-Israel. How do you feel now that the guy who beat Harris by a sliver just called for what appears to be the ethnic cleansing of 1.7 million Muslims in Gaza and for the U.S. to take over the Gaza Strip? Um, it is hard, I think, to just sit back and look at that statement and even know how to respond to it. There's so much blatant bigotry in the statement, and there's such a smug and callous attitude toward the lives of innocent people, um, and turning them into nothing but not even a political pawn, a political plaything. I responded actually to Krasenstein on Twitter, and what I said, and I'll quote myself here. Let's be really clear. The objection was not that Harris was too, quote, pro Israel, although she was to her political detriment. The issue was that being a full partner to the worst genocide of the 21st century is disqualifying. The problem wasn't the voters, it was Biden and Harris. That response actually just scratches the surface of the horrific words that Krasenstein said. First of all, he singles out Muslims. Plenty of people who could not bring themselves to vote for Kamala Harris because of the genocide that she was not just complicit, but a full partner in, were not Muslims. Many were not Muslims. Many, by the way, many of the victims of that genocide are not Muslim. There are still Christians in Gaza, although people like Krasenstein, who just have no idea what the hell they're talking about, uh, you know, I don't even expect them to know that. Um, so we start just by singling out Muslim Americans, Muslim voters, and the racism that's so blatant in there, or if you prefer, the Islamophobia, the bigotry, whatever word you want to use. But it goes beyond that. It There is a devaluation of life here. Um, just from the smug, look how clever I am tone of these statements. We are talking about 2 million people in Gaza. And yes, we are talking about ethnic cleansing. So let's talk about reality. Let's talk about what's actually happening. Let's talk about the horror that is the Gaza Strip and the appalling criminality that is American policy in this regard. What Donald Trump proposed was a massive, major war crime. And it may yet have an effect because while he certainly backed off the idea that American troops would be in Gaza to make this happen, Israel is now forming a plan to do exactly what he said, which is basically to drive Palestinians out of Gaza. Um, his The Israel Cats today announced that the IDF was formulating this plan, and let's be honest, this plan existed long before now. At least the idea of it, perhaps not the actual operational step-by-step plan. Um, and it won't go well. Palestinians are going to resist this. Um, I'm not going to say that, given the firepower that Israel cannot force um, 1.5 million to 2 million Palestinians out of Gaza. They have the guns, they have the bombs, they can do it. People still, are afraid for their lives. People still need to protect their children, no matter how attached they may be to their homeland. You know, that can conceivably happen, I suppose, but it will come at a great cost in many ways, not least to Israel and the United States, but to the whole region, and obviously to Palestinians. The greater likelihood of what will happen is it's a resumption of the genocide. So this is a horrific plan, but folks, this isn't a new idea. I mean, the idea of clearing out people so that you can build a resort may not have been one that Joe Biden embraced, but the idea of driving people out of Gaza, the idea of relocating people to Jordan, to Egypt, and to other places, that's not new to Trump. Okay, Joe Biden and Antony Blinken tried to sell that very plan, and Egypt had to come out very forcefully and go so far as to threaten to exit the Camp David peace treaty that they have had with Israel for over 40 years, if there was an attempt to make this happen and to drive Palestinians into the Sinai. Antony Blinken did a tour of the Middle East not long after the genocide in Gaza started to try and see if he could push this plan forward, and he met enough resistance that he recognized, and Joe Biden recognized, that it wasn't going to happen. It was a non-starter. That no one in the Arab world is so stupid as to destabilize their own region to this degree, for what would amount to very little gain for them. So no matter how unfeeling they are about the plight of the Palestinians, they just weren't going to do it. But Biden was more than willing to do this. Biden proposed doing this. Biden pushed doing this and found it wouldn't work. So, this idea that, oh, look, you elected Trump, and all Trump is willing to do is to press and to try and find a way. And I suspect he will fail as well, but he will try and find a way to do what Biden was unable to do. That's all that this is. Okay. And people like Brian Krasenstein do not understand that, because people like Brian Krasenstein do not know what the hell they're talking about. And they do not actually follow this, and they do not actually give a damn nor place any value on the lives of Palestinians. And that is the bottom line. And that is where the Democrats fell short. Okay. It isn't just, people understand that there are political pressures. People understand that, that we have a certain framework of politics in the United States. Okay. People are working to change that frame, but people know it's there. This isn't a big secret. What they objected to was the passionate zeal with which the Biden administration pursued genocide. Let us use that word. It is genocide. So when people are mocking people who could not bring themselves to vote for somebody who was a full partner, again, not an accomplice, not an aide. Joe Biden was a full partner in this genocide. Okay, he did everything that was asked of him and more. The fact that Netanyahu now throws him under the bus it just shows you what kind of a person Netanyahu is. Joe Biden absolutely did everything he could, went over and above anything that anyone, the most right-wing AIPAC supporter, could have possibly expected him to do to support this genocide. Antony Blinken literally lied to Congress in order to facilitate and ensure that the flow of arms to Israel during this genocide continued against U.S. law. It's genocide. Okay. And so you say, well, you have ethnic cleansing. We had ethnic cleansing before. Okay, when you drive people from the north of Gaza to the south of Gaza, you virtually empty the cities in the north of Gaza and the villages and the towns in the northern Gaza. That's ethnic cleansing, folks. It's not new. It's not new to Trump. He didn't come up with it. And this smug assertion of look what you got, as if people are idiots and had no idea what they're doing. No, they're far better informed than Mr. Brian Krasenstein. Or we can look at Simone D. Sanders, once someone who worked for Bernie Sanders, and how far has she fallen? I mean, it is amazing what money can do to corrupt people. And she just posted a very simple sentence saying, quote, I think now it's very appropriate to reiterate that elections have consequences. The implication here is obvious. That, oh, well, you wouldn't vote for Kamala Harris, and now look, you have ethnic cleansing. Okay. Under Kamala Harris, we had genocide. We had a completely obliterated Gaza Strip. You know, when Trump talks about the fact that Gaza has been completely decimated, when his right hand man talks about it'll take 10 to 15 years to rebuild, they're not wrong. The only part of that's a lie is that they're omitting how it got there. Trump actually had the nerve to say that Gaza was unlucky. Unlucky. I mean, how you can bomb people for 15 months, use snipers to playfully shoot children, little children in the head, to in every way violate every concept of human decency. And then to say that the victims of that had bad luck, stunning. But that is Donald Trump, and that is what we have come to expect from him. And that is exactly why, because we cannot expect better from Donald Trump or from the Republicans, that people felt they needed to hold the Democrats accountable, because people actually have hope. Some may say it's misplaced, but people actually have hope that Democrats can be steered away from this horrifying, highly, highly immoral course that completely devalues the lives of Palestinians and supports and is, in fact, an eager partner in genocide. So when Simone Sanders, posted this rather appalling tweet, I responded again rather simply, yes, elections do have consequences, such as voting for genocide. More to the point, running on a platform of committing genocide is bad politics. Put the blame where it belongs. And this is really where we get to the crux of the matter. These people cannot handle the fact that, as a recent poll from YouGov and the Institute for Middle East Understanding, imeu.net, which I highly recommend, this poll showed that in the swing states and among people who voted for Biden in 2020 and did not vote for Biden in 2024, the number one reason was not the economy, it was not immigration, it was Gaza, it was genocide. People don't want to be complicit in genocide. Let's be really clear about that. That is not something people want. Hell, even Trump's followers tried to say that one of the reasons they like Trump is that he would not get involved in such things overseas. They're wrong, and I'm not sure I even believe them when they say it. But that point is still there, and it can't. There's no debate on it because Joe Biden completely embraced this. Everything that is happening now is the result of Joe Biden's policy decisions. Yes, Donald Trump is making them worse. He's doing stupid, crazy, abhorrent things. But the opportunity to do all of them was created by Joe Biden and by Democrats willing to go along with it. And There has to be at some point a statement made that we cannot continue to be stuck with this choice. That we either get this insane, authoritarian, far right, hateful lunatic in the White House that we have now, or we settle for people who will do horrible things all over the world, including here. I mean, we can look at Biden's immigration policy and the Democrats in general and how they've approached that issue. Plenty that we can look at. And in fact, I did. If you check out my Substack page, mitchellplitnick.substack.com, the Cutting Through newsletter, I have just completed a 3-part essay reviewing Biden's tenure. Far from comprehensive, but it was not pretty. That is not the choice that we should have. That's not democracy. Choosing between a lunatic and a lunatic autocrat and a genocidal zealot is not democracy. That is not a choice. That is not realistic. And choosing between the overt hate of the GOP, the anti-trans stuff, the sheer, unabashed racism, the misogyny, all the things that we see in the GOP, and that being on one side, and a genocidal racism that completely devalues people's lives, and then, as we've seen from these tweets that I cited, and many others, these are not isolated incidents at all. It is all over the internet. To reduce the kind of suffering we've seen in Gaza to snide comments, cheap jokes, and political playthings. I mean, that's just absolutely appalling level of racism. And we need to do better. And we can. And most Democratic voters, at least, I believe, want to do better. We have seen polls that have said that despite the horrific, just the absolutely awful job the American mainstream media has done in covering what's happened in Gaza over the past 15 months, most Democrats still believe Israel's committing genocide in Gaza. It still has gotten through to those people, to most Democratic voters. Those people don't want to be part of a genocide. They don't. They want better leadership. And the terrible loss and the horrible consequences that will certainly ensue for a lot of people because of the 2024 election, not just the White House, but both houses of Congress. That isn't because people were stubborn or trying to make themselves feel good by standing on some lofty principle for no gain. There was a political strategy behind it. Agree with it or disagree with it. There was a political strategy behind that said we have to not be reduced to this kind of a choice. We have to have real options. It can't be one kind of racism versus another kind of racism. It can't be one kind of contempt for human life, international law, and human rights versus another, because that is what we're talking about here. Look, during the campaign, and many of you may remember this, I encouraged people in swing states who are not Palestinian. To Palestinians, I cannot, under any circumstances, tell them they should vote for Kamala Harris. But I encourage people in general who lived in swing states to swallow the bullet and vote for Harris. People came up with ideas about vote swapping in different places, which I thought was kind of clever. I was fortunate, as I said a number of times. I live in Maryland. I didn't have to vote for Kamala Harris. I didn't. Had I been a resident just a few score miles to the north of Pennsylvania, I probably would. I can't say for certain because it's a really, really difficult thing. Um, but I probably would have held my nose and voted for Harris. So I get it. I understand. And believe me, I've talked to many, many people who are Democratic voters, who are progressive voters, who understand very well who Donald Trump is and what he represented. And those, by the way, are the people who are on the front line right now trying to fight against what Trump is doing. Those people that Krasenstein and Sanders are ridiculing and mocking. They're the ones out there fighting Trump. They're not on Twitter making snide remarks. They're out there actually protesting. They're out there actually trying to tell people and wake people up to what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing. And they're working to try and prevent it. I know because I work with them every day. Those people understood the choice they were making. What is not understood by people like Brian Krasenstein, people like Simone Sanders, what is not understood, what is just not appreciated, is that the United States was a full partner in genocide. Over 60,000 Palestinians were killed by Israeli violence in 15 months. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because right now, Palestinians are living without any modern conveniences. There's no clean water, especially in the north of Gaza. There's no sewage system. There's just open sewage all over the place. There is disease is running rampant, and there's no healthcare system to take care of them. And the United States has made sure that there is no that the UN agencies, particularly UNRWA, that are there to help the Palestinians, don't have the resources they need to do the job. Plus, Israelis are still impeding access. Many, many more people than the 60,000 have already died and are going to die. Many more beyond that are going to suffer life-threatening illnesses, life-altering injuries, and we don't even want to talk about the trauma. I mean, if you don't care about Palestinian life, if it just doesn't matter to you, what about Israeli life? Because these children that have gone through this, you think these children that these children are not going to be angry, are not going to be enraged, are not going to be insulted by the dehumanization they've gone through and the hopelessness that they are confronted with by Israel and the United States and the complete lack of care about their lives? You think that promotes a secure future for Israel or for Israelis? I don't. I don't see how any reasonable person could. This isn't a joke, folks. This isn't a matter of coming up with a cute tweet. This is life and death on a grand scale. And it has other implications. I mean, as a Jew, I can talk about the implications for my community and what we've become. That's a different conversation and one that I will be having, hopefully very soon with some very notable people. But Sanders is right. Elections have consequences. And when your choices in those elections are limited to what Trump is trying to do right now and what the murder and torture and unspeakable crimes that Joe Biden committed the last year and a half that he was in office against the Palestinian people. That is not democracy. That is not a choice. That is not an election. You are given no choice. You are told, how do you want to be a murderer? How do you as an American want to be a murderer? That is not a choice. And we need to do better. And people insist that we do better. And that is what people chose when they didn't vote for Kamala Harris, whether they voted third party, whether they stayed home. Admittedly, and I've been the first to say so, um, people who said that Trump was going to be better or different, those people were incredibly foolish. And those people who were in leadership positions who said that should really look at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves if they belong in those leadership positions. But for the most part, that's not what happened. For the most part, people just didn't vote for either of the candidates, or they stayed home because they did not, they wanted to at least limit as much as they could their complicity in what has been the greatest and most horrifying crime of the 21st century so far. Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, and if you can support the work of Cutting Through, it would be deeply appreciated. The site is mitchellplitnick.substack.com, the Cutting Through newsletter. Click on subscribe to the newsletter, and if you can be a paid subscriber or supporter, that would be deeply appreciated. Thanks, and looking forward to some better days.